Hey everyone, I'm Clue, and I think we'll do one more discussion on the Living Legend system before we jump back over to Reddit and the comment sections of my previous videos. Now, I'm sorry if it feels like I'm a bit unresponsive or ignoring your comments. I used to sit down and make sure to reply to everything, but that's really starting to amount. So thank you in that regard, right? Because thanks to you all, my channels continue to steadily grow, but it is amounting to, a few hours every morning that I just don't have because it's the holiday season. And I do want to do the comments justice, right? I want to actually formulate a proper opinion or response to everything you guys are saying. So thank you in that regard, because that's the whole objective of these videos, is to create that dialogue, to broaden my own knowledge basis on the topic, to understand all those perspectives and opinions. But I do want to do them justice, so I do think a video response is a bit better of an idea than, again, me trying to find time here and there to respond to one or two, right? I have responded to some of them, depending on whether or not I've already formulated an opinion or idea about what they are discussing. So I think the main one was regarding Blitz and the rest of the skirmish season. I already thought about the amount of events running and, who might LL. So for instance, I would honestly think that Ira will LL by the end of the season, right? We have this weekend, and then we have, well, next week, or depending when this video goes out, we have 1 week, but yeah, it's not that far away. And Ira is pushed as the big, beginner friendly deck. And I'm sure there's some LGSs out there who are just, starting out, bringing in new players and running those events. So I can see Ira, well, LLing. Now, before we actually get to the points I want to bring up about Living Legend that I've thought about, over on Reddit, Fabric has started the discussion on the system, right? So hopefully this gets a bunch of comments and we can go through that too. It's fairly early, so 18 hours in. They've also posted a link to their article, which is a great read. Go ahead, read it. But I do have one issue with the finishing paragraph of it, so we'll just go over this quickly. This is by far the weakest point in favor of the Living Legend system as it is today. Now, they're talking about the Bravos at Worlds, or Bravos just dominating Living Legend. And this is where it gets to, in my opinion, an idea that I can't fully get behind. So the resulting potential is the greatest point in its favor. Imagine if another card or hero gets printed that specifically only turns the Living Legend format on its head. Imagine the stories we might tell then. Stravo rose to Living Legend in a matter of months, and then single-handedly ran the Living Legend format from its inception until ... So the interpretations of this idea is what, in my opinion, I don't like, right? Again, this is my opinion. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but just in my personal preference, it's not something I can, get behind. So what this implies is one of two things. Either a hero comes out, maybe, that completely overshadows Bravo and will still, well, have issues if it is legal and class constructed. The main implication that they are sort of stating with that only tagline is that, cards are printed specifically for Living Legend, in which case I wouldn't like to see a hero that just jumps straight to Living Legend. That just doesn't make sense to me. In terms of cards, well, the level of power creep I think necessary to do that is also something I can't really get behind. Unless they're specific counters to Bravo, which then, as long as you keep them alive, Bravo will fall short. But as soon as something else comes in competition to that deck, and then you need to take those cards out, and then Bravo goes back to the spotlight, right? It's a vicious cycle. And overall, I just don't like this idea because I don't think there is a salvageable way. I think the clear thing to do is, for Bravo specifically, start bans in Living Legend. I think Living Legend will have to be piloted by something, because again, there's not Living Legend, right? That's at the stage where we will need bans and erratas to make the format actually work and not, well, be bogged down by Bravo. Now, it does bring up another thing that I want to talk about. So in relation to Bravo, and Prism is probably the other one to bring up. So do you think Bravo is busted because of the hero or the deck, right? So in the case of Prism, I think personally it's the combination of OG Prism's ability along with Luminaris that made it so busted. But in terms of Bravo, I think this is by far one of the most powerful cards, or heroes I should say, that they have printed. For me, the big thing that breaks the bank with Bravo is straight away the fact that it is all three elements, right? It seems like in Tales, everything was sort of thought out to limit them so they couldn't overlap with all three elements. Giving Bravo access to Earth, Ice, and Lightning is just a world of possibilities that makes him, again, have these tools that puts him far above everyone else, as we saw. Then you couple that with his actual ability, right? So the whole roulettes to find an Earth, Ice, and Lightning card to then gain +2, dominate, and go again. If you get this off, this is, well, as you all should know, a super strong effect. And there are, again, simple ways to rata it, right? For instance, if you changed it from at the start of turn, you may reveal an earth or an ice or a lightning card from your hand. If you do the next action card with 3 or greater, you play this turn, gains +2 if it's, well, earth, dominate if it's ice, go again if it's lightning, just to keep it in line with, well, the ordering, right? Again, that simple breakup, that simple fracturing of the ability, I do think would be enough to, take him down a peg, right? The fact that you can only pick one, again, it's flexible, it's still fun, but I think it's the unison of the fact that you can take all these different toolkits and then you have this super strong effects for taking all those different toolkits that makes Bravo really the star of the show. Now, in regards to Prism, right, the other probably top meta deck that, was quick to LL. Again, by yourself, just creating a Spectral Shield token for a card from your soul is okay, right? I wouldn't call it broken, right? Maybe strong, but it's Luminaris that then pushes that over the edge. So in the case of Bravo, I do go back to that idea where Bravo should have been personally nerfed. But in the case of Prism, right? Maybe just the weapon should have been nerfed. And then Prism could have seen a bit more play, a bit more of a life cycle. But yeah, I just wanted to bring up that concept. Do you think in regards to X Hero and LLing, that it's the hero that was the problem, right, to be top of the meta? Or do you think it was the combination of hero and cards? Again, in this case of Prism, if Prism didn't have access to Luminaris, if Luminaris didn't exist, would Prism be as strong as she was? In the case of Bravo, right, again, the only factor really making him broken to me is Bravo himself. But in relations to, again, this article, the idea of them printing cards specifically for Living Legend just doesn't make sense to me. It's not something I'd like to see, like a Masters product, but a Living Legend product where it's a bunch of cards only legal in Living Legend. I think the whole idea is that it's meant to be streamlined, right? They see their time in Blitz and Class Constructed, and then they go over to Living Legend. But on the other hand, it is also a decent argument, right? What is the answer for Bravo? If it's not banning, then it has to be printing something specific. If you print in the expansion slot and specifically for Bravo, well, sure, it will do its job, but then it's also this weird card for the main formats. And I don't know how I feel about them, again, taking that idea and printing specific things to fix up Living Legend, rather than just bans or erratas, or even just like a seasonal rotation once there's enough heroes, right? Bravo can be played for this year, and he'll come back in X years, right? Or months, or whatever you want to do. Or even have it be, certain blocks of sets. They're the ones that are currently available for Living Legend. Some way to, again, add in those classic TCG elements, like rotation or heavy bans and erratas / suspensions, to counteract the issues of Living Legend, rather than this idea of printing a hero specific to become top dog. Because again, I think if they print anything that gets close to just usurping Bravo, then it just becomes the new Bravo. If they print any card specific to take down Bravo, right, that's not so bad. But if print cards to power creep and bring other heroes up to Bravo, then that might become an issue. But again, overall, enjoyable article to read. It's another perspective which I want, right, regarding this whole discussion on the Living Legend system. So do give it a read. But anyway, on to the points that I did want to talk about. And looking at the time, I think I've spent a bit more on this than that. So going down to, this is the wrong one. Going down to Blitz, right? Still not right. There we are. Going down to Blitz. Now, the main concept that I've seen is the whole idea of increasing the skirmish points was to specifically get rid of or shake up the meta, right? In regards to Kano specifically, then Kasai and Chain, right? Was Chain this? Yeah, Chain was this season. And what I would ask in response to that, if they're jumping through these hoops to specifically target these heroes to make sure that they move on and we get a fresh new meta, what is the point of the Living Legend system? Again, if you're manipulating it to target specific things, right? In this case, again, moving Kano along, moving Kasai, moving Chain, then why not just say at the end of this season, these 3 heroes are going to be LL'd, right? We believe that they are bad for the meta, so we're going to LL them. Again, I do think that the overflow circumstance that could result from this is worrisome, right? they're fighting this losing battle. I'm pretty sure, I think that was a comment somewhere here. I'm not going to dig for it, but it's not my original thought. It was something I read, right? They're fighting a losing battle where, depending on how Living Legend is tuned, they have to purposely come up with X hero. They have to purposely come up with X amount of heroes. And it's going to be this endless cycle of balance the points, to balance the heroes, to then balance what we have to print and design, to then balance the points, to then balance the heroes, right? It's just an infinite loop where it doesn't feel like they could ever get ahead. And in that situation, is this the correct system to use? Now, in terms of counteracting the heroes that get banned, the heroes that get removed from play, because again, the competitive element of Flesh and Blood is by and large the biggest element. So reinstating all these cards that are removed with the Living Legend system, all the elemental cards, all the elemental guardian cards, all what else has been specifically gone? Well, Emperor is still for Wizard, right? There's still Briar and Vizette. So it's more for class constructed. But even in case of the heroes and coming up with a hero that's not a carbon copy, but also something that then fills the void left by X hero, they have to be numerous sets ahead to make this work, right? Again, if Faye and Dromai end up going, right, because they're both close, yeah, if Faye and Dromai end up going, then it's now, well, this year we hope to see Tails and a return to Volclaw, so that we, again, get these heroes back and they can fill those niches. If they LL, we lose Draconic, we lose Draconic Ninja, and we lose Draconic Illusionist. And overall, I go back to that thought where what LL does, their whole consensus is to preserve the utility cards, but that solely relies on what they decide to design and print and what sets we get. Because even though the cards aren't banned, being unplayable, being unusable, is still equivalent to a ban. And once we get that reprint, that new design, that alternative version, then they come off the ban list because now they're all accessible and usable again. So overall, I go back to that question. Although this is a great concept, the hassle behind it and the long-term complications from misjudging, a point increase, a point decrease, misjudging what sets to print for the year, what sets to print next year, having the consistency of banning heroes when they want to ban heroes, when they identify heroes as a problem. We can keep the main concept, don't ban cards, ban heroes, right? This deck was dominant for the whole year, so we've made the conscious choice to LL this hero. But don't worry, the next set, or the set after that, is going to feature the hero that serves as its replacement. Wouldn't that level of consistency be better than the Living Legend system? Because again, if they're just manipulating the points so that they can make sure the meta shifts and the meta does what it wants, they take the risk of, well, wouldn't it have been funny if everyone just didn't play Kano? Because Kano seemed to be the main target of the point increase, or even if it was Kasai as well and Chain, right? What if people just all of a sudden, had a mechanologist craze, right? This was all possible. So if this whole objective of doubling the skirmish points was to shift this meta, then why not just, again, specifically ban these heroes? Why create the illusion of choice, right? If they're going to manipulate the points when they see fit, there's going to be a reason behind that, an objective that they want to meet. I have no doubt that LSS have a plan, have an idea in mind of the direction they want the game to go, but they are introducing so many elements of variability that we, the community, can really mess up their goals and objectives. And while it's great to have that level of power through the Living Legend system, through actually determining what rotates out depending on what we play and what we enjoy as a community, the other side of the coin is it's not necessarily going to be the broken decks, right? It could be the popular decks, because the other perspective to think about is if a deck is popular and the majority play that deck, then you'll have the people who play the deck specifically to counteract that deck, and then the people who play a deck to counteract that deck. And even if a deck could be top of the meta will form, again, around those two core beliefs. What is popular, and then what is also the most playable. So in the case of Bravo, the main concept was he was heavily playable and kind of a cool design, right? So he had both the popular vote and also the ease of play and the actual meta relevancy that led to such a quick LLing. And again, all of this is a great idea, but comes at the cost of so many inconsistencies that if they want X thing to happen, right, and they want to manipulate the system so that X thing does eventually happen or happen sooner, then why not just skip all those steps and just, again, ban heroes? Decide this is the season, this is the last season for this hero. Make the public awareness, make people understand, because you have all the other cascade of events that happen, right? If Dromai is getting close to LL, you'll have people who want to ditch all the Dromai cards, especially since the dragons are the Marvel cards, right? They want to ditch them before they lose their intrinsic value, because again, so much of the game is tied to playability and the competitive aspects. This whole system is just ripe for a problem to eventuate. And then lastly, in regards to whatever plan LSS do have, again, there's tons of comments on every post regarding the Living Legend system. I see the same sort of thoughts, right? LSS are trying to do this, and their plan is obviously to print this, to fix this, and do this. But again, speculation is fun. It's enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it's just speculation. We're getting 3 sets. Those 3 sets are not going to cover every basis, right? The obvious idea to run is, well, we get heavy hitters, and then we get a return to Arya and a return to Volkor, right? So that we get all the elemental heroes back, and we get the replacements for Dromai and Faye right before they LL. But who's to say that's what's going to happen? Who's to say, again, one set isn't focused on something new? I am all on board with LSS focusing on creativity and being able to design whatever they feel like and have fun. That's super exciting and interesting. But this is the backbone of the game, and this will take a lot of work to manage and maintain effectively, which then goes back to the whole thing of we could do with a lot better information. You have a plan, let us in on it. You have X heroes you want to print, you have X heroes to fill X voids, let us in on it. Going over the previous Living Legend articles, right? This was the first one in 2021, 2022, and then 2023. There's a clear difference. And I know James is pressed for time here, right? Because there was so much going on. But at the same time, it could have been worth delaying it, because the main takeaway from this article is this final paragraph, this summary, versus the mountain of information and ideas and concepts that they're working with, presented in all these other changes and updates, right? They go over what they're trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. They break it down so you can properly understand it. Now, the other thing is the population of communities continue to grow. So these articles are probably foreign to a lot of people. So even just some sort of link in this one, some sort of restatement of the main ideas in these articles, I think would have been a lot better. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm not saying, they're at fault or anything like. I don't want to sound negative, right? I'm trying to criticize, but also pay their dues, because again, everything they've done with the game, all the growth we've seen, all their development, what they've done from a business perspective as well, is all fantastic. It's wonderful to see, and it makes me feel really proud to be a part of this game and see it develop and grow. But I do think it is worth taking that step to slow down. We don't have to catch up to all the other TCGs. We don't have to squish 20 years of development into the course of 5. And it's clear in some aspects that that's what they're doing, right? PvE is on the backbench for however long it takes to get the competitive format and the Living Legend system, again, the main aspect of the game currently, to a more manageable stage. But information is also hugely important. Understanding what's going to happen, what's going on, is a way to sort of repair the fracturing that will happen in all the different aspects. Again, the Living Legend system affects what people play, what people do with the game, right? There's also a bunch of comments of people saying, well, I wanted to do this, I wanted to buy X hero, but because of the Living Legend system, right, I don't want to invest. It's sort of a turn off for the game. Because again, jumping from one hero to the other, depending on what it is, can be costly. So to rationalize and tell them, well, we're sorry, right? We thought this was best for the meta, but don't worry, you will get a replacement at this point, or we're working on a replacement. Just reassurance could go a long way. Living Legend affects new players. Living Legend affects the market. Living Legend affects so much of the game. But anyway, that's just my thoughts and perspective, right? And the final points I did want to bring up before, again, we jump back to the comments. So, get again, tell me your thoughts, your opinions, help broaden my knowledge on the topic, because it is such an interesting topic to me. Again, it is this new take on the classical way to run a TCG. So I am interested to see where it goes, and I am interested in understanding the faults and the benefits to it. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. See ya.